Designing the Fernie site has been a great way for us to get comfortable designing for web in Figma. We've pretty much learned everything we need to take on any project like this. With that said, throughout your career as a designer, you may find yourself in a situation where you're designing something huge, something with a lot more styles and components than this e-commerce site. If that's the case, a lot of times it can be super helpful to build out a more robust design system. Or you might find yourself working for a team that already has a robust design system. In this lesson, I'm going to show you what that could look like just to get you inspired. So since we don't have tons of components here on the Fernie site, I want to show you a personal project of mine that does have a ton of components. Now, when I went to build this, I wanted a little extra help and I didn't want to spend tons and tons of time on the design system. So what I did was I actually went to the Figma community and downloaded one of their free design systems. So I just sort of edited it from there and it's been perfect for what I need. So I'll just show you kind of how this is laid out in my file. I have a whole component library here with a bunch of different types of components. So you can see we have our colors here, icons, typography, and then we start getting into these components. So things like alerts, and all of these have different variants, just like what we've created for Fernie, but it just goes a lot deeper since there's a lot more to this project. We have breadcrumbs, buttons. Look how many buttons there are here. This is totally overkill for some sites and products, but for others, it actually might be necessary. Checkboxes and radios, accordions, drop downs, modals, pagination, the list goes on. Let me show you another example. So if we actually get out of Figma, I'm going to show you a few really kind of well-known design systems, some which are open source, so you can actually use them, design with them, and build with them just as anyone kind of off the street, which is really cool. So here is material design. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's what Google uses for all of their products. So if you go to m3.material.io and then I've navigated to components here, I can just sort of go through and really look in depth at their component library, or what they call their design system. So I can really go through and look at all of the specs and just get into the nitty-gritty of all of these things for all of the components that are used across their products, which is really cool. So go into dialogues and you can see they have a basic dialogue or a full screen dialogue. You can go in and actually look at their guidelines. So when you're using something like this, what do they recommend, or what are their guidelines for Google products? The basic anatomy of something like this, what are all of the parts, and it just goes on. You could explore this and really kind of get inspired for hours if you wanted to. And a lot of times I will definitely get inspiration from things like material design when I'm doing my own design for my own design system for different client projects and such, just because you don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? There's already something that's working really well with radio buttons. You don't want to have something completely different that kind of throws off the user. So let's look at another one. This is Apple's design system. So again, you can just really look through all of these different things, read about their best practices and their styles, and kind of see real visual examples of all these. Shopify has a design system called Polaris, which I like to get inspiration from a lot. So what's really cool about this is it also shows you the code in HTML and in React. So you can get into kind of the do's and don'ts and just go through every possible thing that has ever been used in a Shopify product. We also have the Carbon design system, which I really, really like. And again, just has all that same information. And last, I want to show you one for MailChimp, which I think is fun, and I kind of like the way they've designed theirs. So you can just go through and also see their code, can see how they like to do data visualization and all of that stuff. Now, this is a lot. You definitely don't need design systems like this for every project that you create. That should probably go without saying. And what I would recommend is figuring out upfront what you think you're going to need, designing those things upfront, and then as you go, you can always edit, modify, and add to your design system. Instead of starting with everything you may possibly need and then just being overwhelmed and causing a little bit of confusion among your team if you start too big. Figma has recently introduced a feature that's super helpful when it comes to design systems. So we're going to get an overview of that in the next lesson.